Today I'm talking about something that at the very beginning might sound a little negative. All right, so I'm warning you. So that you don't close your ears and your heart after you hear the title, but it's called You'll Never Be Ready. Yeah, you'll never be ready. Wah, wah. That's a Debbie Downer, huh? You'll never be ready. You'll never be ready enough to get married, to have kids, to go back to school, to move into the mission field, to start a business. You'll never be ready enough to take that position. You'll never be ready to, and that's the truth we must all face at some point. I know people that just continue going to school for the same thing, and it never seems to be enough. It never seems to learn enough. Now, I want to say this. I am not against education at all. I am not against preparation at all, okay? And you'll get the heart of what I'm saying here. But the truth is you'll never be ready enough. So, for example, for me, I wanted to be in business administration. I had my plans, but, the word says that we make plans and the Lord directs our steps. So when you surrender your life to Him, you're saying, God, this is what I would like to do. This is my heart, but, let it be unto me, as your word says. Like Mary's position. Mary was part of a big miracle that changed the history of the entire world, right? It broke the timeline, worldwide, before Jesus and after Jesus. Why? Because Mary said, Lord, let it be unto me, as you say. Like, I don't get it, I don't understand it, it sounds impossible, kind of crazy, but let it be unto me as you want. So we surrender our plans to the Lord, It doesn't mean that you don't have plans, it just means that you make plans, the Lord directs your steps. He puts desires in your heart, you kind of get an idea how it's supposed to be, how it should look like, but you surrender it to God, and then He directs your steps. Right? But for Him to direct steps, you must take steps. Thank you. Exactly. So you'll never be ready enough to get married. I was like, so my wife is laughing because she knows where I'm going with this. But see, for example, for the mission field, when I knew there was a calling in my life, I wanted to go to Bible school. I wanted to go to Christ for the Nations in Dallas because that's where all my friends went. That's where my spiritual father was part of founding Christ for the Nations. And that was the school you go to for Bible school. So I thought that's where I needed to go. So again, I had plans, I had a calling, but then I set them before the Lord, and the Lord calls me to travel with Clint Rogers, who you guys met, right? And at 18 years old, I leave my house. Never thought I'd leave my house till the day I got married. And I left my house, and I went on the mission field for a couple of years and traveled, Central and South America and Mexico, doing and seeing amazing things. So I kind of had the idea, but the Lord directed my steps and said, instead of going to school, you're going straight into the field. We're going to get some experience and practice in your pocket. This is what you need. Okay, God. So there was no school. There was no preparation. It was like the preparation happened in my heart when I said yes. See? When you set your heart before the Lord, you say, yes, God. That's part of your preparation. Because the Lord knows that when He calls you, what's happened in your life has already been part of your preparation. See? You think, I got to prepare, maybe in 10 years. Same thing. My dad starts a church. We need a worship team. I know nothing about playing instruments. And I go, Dad, I want to be in the worship team. He's like, okay, son, well, we'll put you in classes. Maybe in 5 years you could start playing. Well, what happens is I said yes to God. Months later, I'm in a conference. A man of God, worship leader, prays over me. And all of a sudden, I start playing the piano, just like one hand. Next week, two hands. Next week, I prayed over a guy. He starts playing the bass. He didn't know anything about bass, And the same thing happened with our team. So when you say yes to God, He takes that yes and He starts directing your steps. But we need to learn to be flexible, that sometimes things don't look exactly as we picture them, right? But you're taking steps with the Lord because He directs your steps. So then, I'm like, all right, I'm done with the mission field. Lord, I want to get married. I have no friends because my friends were just, not heading the right direction. So I kind of cut off those relationships. And the other friends I had were a married couple. So I'm kind of tired of being the third wheel. And I have to get married. I need to get married, God, but who am I going to marry, So all of a sudden, He's like, remember that best friend you have, Kara, And finally, I muster up enough courage to tell her, to ease it in on her and say, you're the one I want to wake up to every morning the rest of my life, just kind of like, eased it in that way. and then she just kind of closes the door to me and is like, oh, you're emotional, and so let's not, we can't talk anymore. And I was like, this is the short version of this story, And then for 2 weeks she goes and prays while I have a meltdown for 2 weeks, and I'm like, my stomach is in a knot. I don't know what's going to happen. And she prays and fasts, and the Lord tells her and confirms to her through dreams and friends and everything, like, yeah, that's the man. So, here we are, But when she comes out to Mexico for us to start dating, I'm thinking, we're going to date for a couple of years. I'm going to save up money. I have a business. I started a business in Mexico, started to sell sound equipment and things, and being a broker of equipment and instruments and stuff, because, I was there, and I was back from the mission field trying to get back into normal life. And so she comes, and I'm thinking, all right, a couple of years, will give me enough money to buy a big old diamond ring she deserves and all this stuff. And when she comes out, we're driving, from the airport, and we start talking about this, and she's like, oh, I'm no girlfriend material. It's like, I'm not going to date you. We're getting married. And I'm like, yeah, I know we're getting married. Of course we're getting married. I want to marry you. I don't want a girlfriend. I'm like right with you. She's like, okay, so how about in, what was it? That was January. She's like, so how about November? I'm like, November? That's like, you mean this year or next year, November? It's like, no, this year. I'm like, oh gosh, it's like, I am not ready, I'm like, okay, I'm like, I don't want this fish to. Yeah, she said, I'll be your friend. No benefits, but I'll be your friend. Because we don't do that stuff. That stuff's not in the Bible, you guys. That's not right. Either you're married with all benefits or you're single with no benefits. That's it. So we're like, all right, November. I'm not about to let this fish go away. So November it is, and I didn't feel ready, but I knew it was God. I knew she was the woman for me. So you just go. There's no ready, set, go. It's just go. And the Lord provided. When I first came here in July of 2005, I didn't even have a work permit. We had we did this whole process of the fiancé visa and all this stuff. So I had to turn in my tourist visa and all this, and I didn't have a permit to work yet. So, in some people's mind, this would be a lot harder, especially if you're like the eagle analytical kind of person, to be like, hold up, I need to know where I'm going to work, how much I'm going to make, and then before I take that step. And it couldn't be like that. It was like, I'm here, and then the Lord will started bringing, in the finances from one way, from another way, this thing and such. Like God would use people to bring income I didn't even think could come, right? And because when you take the step of faith, the Lord always shows up. He always shows up. He never leaves us hanging out to dry. See? When you're following his steps, when he's going before you, you get to see the next step, even if you can't see 3 or 4 or 5 steps ahead as you would like, right? So, I'm like, all right, well, we're married, let's wait a couple of years before we have kids. And you all know how that joke went, because waiting a couple of years to have kids was not what happened. We got pregnant a month after we got married, and it just stopped, Our fifth one is 2 years old, and she is our last one, unless we have a Mary experience, So you're never really ready. I mean, you can choose to have that life. You can choose to say, all right, God, when I'm ready, then I'll take the next step. And the problem is what's going to happen is you're going to keep getting ready. You're always going to keep ready. Because you know why? I mean, there's always going to be more education. There's always going to be one more class to take. There's always going to be the newest thing in health and technology and in physics and any field that you're in. There's always going to be one more thing, right? Because the world is going, like, it's going fast. It's moving fast. So you're never going to be ready enough. And if you think you have to save up this much money, by the time you save up this much money, inflation will tell you that you actually need more money now, right? If you're saving up because you have to have this much in savings so that you can buy this house, by the time you're ready to buy that or do this or do that, it's going to be like more. It's never going to be ready enough. That's why we walk by faith, not by sight. That's why we make plans, but we allow the Lord to direct our steps. You'll never be financially ready, emotionally ready, or spiritually ready. And I know the analyticals are going crazy right now. I'm wanting to walk out of this place, but let me tell you, you'll never have enough faith, you'll never have enough cash, you'll never have enough savings or enough courage. You just have to go. Sometimes go with the Nike swoosh. Just do it. You just have to. If you know the Lord is leading you in that direction, if you know in your heart that is where God wants you to go, you just need to take the first step, even if you can't see 5 steps ahead. Why? Because obedience takes the responsibility off of our shoulders. When you choose to obey, then it's up to Him to show you the next step. Okay. It's kind of like the same thing, with having kids, and then we started a church. We didn't know who was going to come. It was kind of crazy. We were in this side of town, then we went from an 11 o'clock service to a 2 p.m. service 60 miles west. We knew God said to do that, And then in 6 months, the Lord spoke to us and said, in 6 months you come back. We came back in 6 months, and there was nothing, no way, financially, or any way. There was no way we could have a place like this kind of space. Financially speaking, geographically speaking, from the real estate point of view, any point of view, But when the Lord leads, He opens the door. And He did. And this was a miracle. The way we found this place and how God led us, it was a miracle, Because that's what He does. He shows up. See, my spiritual father, Wayne Myers in Mexico, he says, God misses a lot of opportunities to be early, but He's never late. And that's true. Because sometimes we like to see before we step. But with God is the other way. You step and then you see. That's called faith. Right? That's called trust. See, and the thing is, if you're looking for an excuse, you will always find one. Isn't that true? You'll always find an excuse, as silly as it may seem. Like, I'm too young, right? 1 Timothy 4:12 says, don't let anyone think less of you because you are young. Be an example to all believers in what you say, in the way you live, in your love, your faith, and your purity. Do not let anyone think less of you because you are young. Don't let anyone despise your youth. I'm too young. That could be an excuse, right? Well, it tells you no. Be an example instead to other believers, the way you live, the way you love, your faith, and your purity. Wow. You're too young. That's not an excuse. I'm too old. Well, look at Abraham. Genesis 21:5. He was 100 years when Isaac was born. That's amazing. I don't have money. Well, God is your provider. He told the disciples in Luke 9:3, take nothing for the journey. Just go. Why? Because He wanted them to starve and be in trouble? No, because He was going to provide for them. Because where God sends you, He provides. What God calls you for, He provides for. Oh, well, I'm not that special. Tell the person next to you, I'm not that special. Go ahead, tell him. And now the other person is going to reply back, because 1 Peter 2:9 says, you're a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for God's own possession. He called you out of darkness into His marvelous light. So turn to the person next to you, tell them you're a prince or a princess. You're royalty. You're holy. You're a people of God's own possession. You came out of darkness and you're in light now. She said, that's not an excuse either. Right? What other excuses? I'm not that special. I'm not that smart. Okay, well, 1 Corinthians 2:16 says that you have the mind of Christ. You think Christ is smart? Right? Well, I'm not ready. You'll never be ready enough. But you are chosen. And you're qualified by Jesus. You're justified and you're made righteous by His grace. So even if you never feel ready, God sees you done. See, remember, I've used the baking example because baking happens in my house too much, okay? It's too much. And, when the dough and the chocolate chips and the eggs and and the whole mix is there, even before it's mixed, it just, nobody would be like, yum, like, that's gross, right? But see, we might be in a stage like that, or you might be in the mixed stage, or you might be in, getting ready to go in the oven. Like, I don't know what stage you're in, but God sees you like the perfect, already warm, baked cupcake. Like, with the icing on top and the cherry on top. Like, God sees you like that already. So when you're like, I'm not ready, God's like, what are you talking about? Everything that you need for everything that I called you to do, it's already in you. It's already inside of you. You just need to take the next step and then follow me on to the next step and follow me on to the next step. You're qualified. Say, I'm qualified by Jesus. I am chosen. I am justified. And I am righteous by His grace. Say, I have no excuse. See? Sometimes you need someone to talk you out of your excuses. So just listen to this over and over. I have never been and never will be ready enough for anything God has called me to do. Because the truth is that if I was and I felt, I'd probably mess it up. Like the guy I told you guys about, who God told him to raise $3 billion for this center that was going to be a light in the community. He's like, Lord, I've never raised $1 million. He's like, good, because you'd probably mess it up. So he raised $3 billion. He's like, that was amazing. God did it. God called Moses to lead 2 million people, not because he had a career in politics, not because he had, read all of John Maxwell's books. He didn't. He just told him to go and go. God knew it, in him was everything he needed. God created him, and that was his calling. When we step out and say yes, then God did some of the most amazing miracles through the life of Moses. Incredible stuff. It was amazing. Now, this doesn't mean that I haven't prepared myself. This doesn't mean that you don't prepare yourself. Not at all. So if you're thinking, oh, good, I'm off the hooks for school, I'm off the hook for reading, I'm off the hook for studying. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not against preparing. You have to prepare yourself. God doesn't call the qualified, but He qualifies the called. See? See, you're not called because you're qualified. You're called. He calls you and then he qualifies you. He gives you what you need. He qualifies the one He calls. See, the Bible tells us that many are called, but few are chosen. And one time when I learned this, it was a little different because I learned that He called all of us, but only those that get ready are chosen, right? Which kind of throws you into performance mode because you feel then all this pressure that you have to get ready and have more knowledge and all this stuff to do, But instead, when you understand that you are called and the ones that are chosen are the ones that say yes to the call. Okay? Right? The ones that say yes. Not the ones that, have all the knowledge or the ones that, try to do all the right things. Like, no. If you say yes and you obey, and you start being faithful and taking steps in the direction that he's leading you, even when you don't know what it's going to look like, even though it doesn't make sense to you, okay? If it lines up with his word, you take the steps, he's the one that's going to build you. He's the one that's going to take you. He's the one that's going to continue promoting you. So say, I am called and I'm chosen when I say yes. Okay? That's all. It's easy. With God, it's not complicated. It's not hard to hear his voices. A lot of people are very worried about missing out on the will of God. Don't worry about that. Just take some steps. Take some steps. Because it's a lot easier to move and to direct a car that is moving than to direct a car that is parked with the e-brake on. I'm waiting. Like, just at least put it in neutral, Let somebody come and give you a push, Jeremiah 1. Let's go read Jeremiah chapter 1. Are you guys getting something out of this? All right, good. Jeremiah chapter 1. We're going to start in verse 4. And I'm going to read a few verses down. It says, the word of the Lord came to me saying, okay, this is God speaking to Jeremiah. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Now, you understand, this is also for you, okay? The word of God is inspired by God and is for you, okay? So God is telling you the same thing he told Jeremiah. I formed you in the womb and I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Well, I'm not called to be a prophet. No, a prophet speaks the word of God. You're called to speak the word of God, right? O sovereign Lord, I said, I do not know how to speak. I am only a child. Remember the excuses we just read? All that stuff. Like, here was Jeremiah. He's like, I'm only a child. Like, I don't even know how to speak in front of people or anything like that. How am I going to be a prophet? Verse 7 says, but the Lord said to me, do not say, I am only a child. See, God, why is he telling him that? Was he not a child? No, he was a child. He was young. So was God wrong? Was he wrong? No, but how does God see him? God sees him like the baked cupcake, right? Like God sees him done. God sees him how he called him to be. And it says, do not say I am only a child. You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and I will rescue you, declares the Lord. Then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth and said to me, now I have put my words in your mouth. See, today I appoint you over the nations and kingdoms to uproot and tear down, to destroy and overthrow, to build and to plant. The word of the Lord came to me. What do you see, Jeremiah? I see the branch of an almond tree, I replied. The Lord said to me, you have seen correctly, for I am watching to see that my word is fulfilled. So a lot of the preparation that we actually need is in our heart. It's heart preparation more than anything. It's one of the most important things you can work on. When we do premarriage counseling, we're not giving them knowledge so that they not know formulas of what to do. We're working with the hearts of them. We're looking at the lives. We're looking at how they were raised. We're looking at the sacred cows of their lives so we could say, this needs to come out of your heart, and this is the truth that you need to rewrite in your heart so that this is not a problem in your marriage. Otherwise, you're carrying baggage into your marriage that's going to be a recipe for destruction. So pre-marriage counseling, preparing, for that in this situation is preparing your heart. God prepares our heart. Another thing is God asked Jeremiah, what did you see? What do you see? Because first he saw himself as a child, as powerless, little, weak child, right? But God needed Jeremiah to see how God saw. God needed Jeremiah to see from his perspective, to start seeing the things that he saw. So he took his eyes off of him and he started seeing what God saw. What do you see? Now I'm seeing what God sees. I see the branch of an almond tree. You see correctly. And God tells him, I'm watching to see that my word is fulfilled. So you obey. I'll make sure my word's fulfilled. You take steps of faith. You trust me and put action to it, and I will watch over my promises to be fulfilled in your life. You stand on the word, I'll make it happen. You keep praying. Keep declaring. Keep asking. Don't give up. I'll make sure. See, he's the one that makes it happen. Pray and declare over your situation. So work on your heart. Get God's perspective. Pray and declare over situations. Speak things into existence. And obey. See, when if we study the life of Moses, if we study the life of Mary, Mary didn't have parenting classes before God chose to, put his one and only son into her hands. She just said, yes, let it be unto me. Then she was Spirit-led. Because here, Saint David and Paul and Timothy, and so many more that we study in the Bible, because the thing is, again, we will never be ready enough. It's almost like if God told you too soon, you would just be anxious and worried and overwhelmed, for too long, So sometimes God gives you things that are, far out ahead, and sometimes God gives you things that are like around the corner. Because he knows us. He knows our heart. He knows where we're at. But the one thing that God's not expecting is for us to make it happen. He only expects us to be vessels, to do it with him. 2 Peter 1:3 says, I'm going to read verse 3 and 4. It says, by his divine power, God has given us everything we need for living a godly life. Say with me, everything I need to live a godly life, God has given me already. That's in you. That's inside of you. He gave you his Holy Spirit. It says, we have received all of this by coming to know him, the one who called us to himself by means of his marvelous glory and excellence. See, he called you to himself. Did you get that? God called you to him. Remember, everything is about being drawn closer to God. Everything is supposed to be done with him, in him, through him, him. Okay? And because of his glory and excellence, he has given us great and precious promises. This is good. These are the promises that enable you to share his divine nature and escape the world's corruption caused by human desires. So he didn't leave us in this world alone, figure it out. No. He gave us divine and precious promises so that we can overcome the world, so that we can conform to him, the rock that never changes, and not to the world that is always changing. His divine and precious promises will help us overcome anything that is going on in the world. So he didn't leave us alone, and he didn't ask us to do anything by ourselves. And you got to understand, I'm not just talking about ministry stuff. I'm talking about whatever God has called you to do. Be a mom, be a grandma, be a father, be a businessman, be an employee, be like whatever. Because remember that the church is not here, but the church is out there. We take it with us, right? So whatever God's called you to be, if he gave you a business, if he gave you a job, if he gave you children, if he gave you, like whatever is in front of you, God didn't call you to do it on your own. He called you to do it with him. And there is a purpose in his kingdom when you connect with him and his promises, see, that makes everything that you're doing, instead of mundane, it makes it eternal. So whenever you think that what you're doing is mundane, think again. No, God called me to do this business. God called me to do this thing. I'm here for a reason. There's someone's life I'm supposed to touch. See? Finances that come out of here and the prosperity is supposed to also, touch lives all over the world. Amen. We already have inside everything we need for what God has called us to do. Say, I got it. See, it's already in you. It's already in you. We have a relationship with Jesus. We have his Holy Spirit, who is the teacher. We have his word, which is a light unto our path, and it brings us wisdom. See? Abraham, in Hebrews 11:8 says, Abraham did not know the final destination. Let me read that. See, Abraham was called out of his house, to leave his house and to leave what he knew. And he was called to God to go to a land that he was going to give him, and he was going to make him great and prosperous. So Hebrews 11, verse 8, it says, by faith Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went even though he did not know where he was going. He had no idea where he was going. Have any of you ever taken a step and you just don't know where you're going? Like you just know God told you to go and you just went. He told you to do something and you can't see, 3 feet in front of you because it's just foggy. See? But what happened to Abraham? Father of nations, of multitudes, right? Amen. Friend of God, the father of faith. Wealthy to the point that he had to turn wealth away from people that wanted to give to him. Be like, no, I can't take that because I don't want you to ever say or tweet that you gave me that. God made me rich. We don't need all 35 steps. You just need to be faithful and obedient with the next step. Now, why does God do this? Because, see, we're all wired different, right? And some of us like to know our information. Some of us like to know, we'd just be so much more at ease if we could see the whole picture. That's what we think in our prideful human minds sometimes. Like, God, if I could only just tell me everything now. Like, you don't need to hide it from me. Like, tell me. Like, you'd probably be scared, But he does this with us so that we don't rely on the revelation, on the information, or on the map, but rely on him. Again, he's always drawing us closer to him. He's always wanting us to know him as something new. So, it's like this. You're going somewhere. You're in the car. Jesus is with you, And, okay, so what does it feel like? What does it feel like when you're driving somewhere you don't know how to get to, right? Well, nowadays, we pull out our phones. We tell Siri or whoever's in there, or Google, to take us somewhere, right? And then we set up our little phone right there on the dash and we follow directions and we follow the voice and we could see the map. You could see where it ends. You could take it step by step. You could print directions if you're old style too, like how MapQuest used to print like 16 pages to get somewhere, Like you could do that, but you're comfortable because, but it also is a lot of work, because when you're the one in charge of getting you there, you have to, set it correctly, and you have to find the correct routes, the ones with least traffic, and like choose this one's 13 minutes, this one's 12 minutes, this one's 12 and a half minutes. I don't know. All right, let's see. And it's a lot of work too. When that's happening with me, like I can't really have a conversation with my wife or anybody else because I'm focused on how to get there. I'm focused on, did I miss it? Did I not hear? Kids, be quiet. I missed Siri. It's crazy and it's stressful. But what happens if you're in the car and the co-pilot knows exactly how to get there, right? And they just tell you, yeah, just turn here. Okay, great. And then you continue on having this conversation. You continue on having a relationship. Like when I'm in Mexico City and I'm driving, my dad's next to me. He knows exactly how to get there. All I do, I'm driving, and he just tell me, yeah, make your next right. Okay, sure. And we continue talking about what we're talking. It is about 3 hours to get anywhere in Mexico. So we have a 3-hour long, rich conversation, because I don't have to worry about looking at a map, finding routes, finding where there's traffic or no. All I have to do is watch when he tells me turn here or turn there or merge left, And I can sit back and relax. I can rest because he's the one directing me. He's right there with me. See, what we try to do in life, a lot of us, is we're trying to tell Jesus, give me the map and take an Uber. I'll see you there. And it's like, that's religion. You're like, just give me the 25 steps. Let me see it, and then maybe I'll see you there if I like it, And God's like, no, let me just be in the car with you. We're supposed to do this together. That way you can rest. You can rely on me. Like, you don't have to know everything. We live in a culture that nowadays, and again, I'm not against the benefits of technology, but it's a problem when we try to bring that culture into our relationship with God. Because then we're trying to conform to the world and then bring the world into our relationship with God. And he's just not like that. He's never changing. He's always the same, yesterday, today, and forever. Right? So you're what was I saying? I lost my train of thought. Yes. Amen. We want to be enjoying the journey because it's all about relationship. Religion will just want us to get 25 steps, and this is how I do it, and it's much more comfortable because I'm in control, right? Like, I'm in control, and that puts us at ease. But faith is not that way, and relationship is not that way. That's why we surrender to God, and we trust Him, and we learn to hear His voice. He's not going to change. He's not going to do it our way. He wants us to do it His way. He wants us to trust Him when we don't know what it looks like out there. So again, I love the technology and all this stuff is great for the world, but I don't want to bring that into my relationship with Jesus. Because if I get used to that culture and I want to bring that in, I'm going to want to tell God, how to do things. I'm going to want to tell God, hey, no, I'm sorry. I'm not budging until you put all the steps. I'm not taking a step. He's like, sorry, you're going to miss out.